Time to hit the hardwood with these ballers. DraftKings contributors Julian, Edlow, and Kenny Ducey, and Rotowire NBA editor Nick Whalen. I want your favorite plays for Game 2 of the NBA Finals, aka NBA Best Bets. So, Jules, before we do that, the Sun State Game 1, we're going to look ahead, but what were some of your takeaways from the opener here?
Takeaways from the opener were, first of all, from Milwaukee, Giannis looked good. I don't think any of us thought Giannis was going to look that healthy. I think that we should have seen him playing in Game 1, because if we had the report right from a reputable guy like Chris Haynes, that if that series went to 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals, Giannis was going to get the green light to play in Game 7 on Monday, then yeah, he's going to play in Game 1 of the NBA Finals on Tuesday, unless the Bucks really wanted to take it cautious and because their backs aren't against the wall in a Game 7, kind of keep him on ice to start a series. But he was out there. He went up for an alley-oop on the first play of the game. He had the LeBron-esque chase down block. He was very clearly as healthy as you can be when playing basketball in July. So that was a takeaway. Another takeaway is, even with Middleton taking 26 shots and shooting nearly 50%, even with Brook Lopez giving you 17 points in 23 minutes, even with Bryn Forbes giving a little spark and Pat Connaughton both going 2 for 4 from 3 with the small ball lineup, the Suns still won by 13 with Devin Booker going 1 of 8 from downtown. Jay Crowder didn't make a shot. If Jay Crowder goes 2 of 10 in that game, now we're looking at an 18, 19-point game. The Suns, just the mismatch with Ayton, whether it's Lopez on the floor or Milwaukee goes small, advantage Ayton every time. And then just anytime Chris Paul and Devin Booker are on the floor together, that 2-guard lineup just is not something that Milwaukee is capable of stopping. So a lot of advantages for the Suns. Both teams have things that they can improve upon, but I think the Suns can improve upon it just as much as the Bucks can, which is scary.
You scared, Kenny?
I'm very scared about the Bucks. Yeah, look, I think that Julian is absolutely right there. The Bucks played a pretty solid game from all, really from all indications, right? When, you talk about the two guys that they needed to stepped up, and they still managed to lose by this much. And really, Julian hit on, the front court. And I think that that's a big thing here for the Bucks, because I expected, look, the Clippers, they lost Serge Ibaka, Ivica Zubac, whatever. He's like an average player. They didn't really have a way to stop DeAndre Ayton. So I figured, okay, well, you have Giannis, you have Brook Lopez, you have a guy like Bobby Portis who's ready to go to war every single night. Maybe the Bucks have a little more size. Maybe they can compete down low with DeAndre Ayton. Not only were they not able to stop him, but, they really just missed a lot of tip-ins. They missed a lot of shots around the rim, which lead me to another takeaway I had, which was Jrue Holiday. Where was he on the offensive end? 4 for 14. He was the playmaker that Milwaukee needed. He managed to get 9 assists, grab 7 rebounds, pretty solid in those departments once again. But, missing some shots from close range, missing some floaters, of course, missing all 4 of his 3-point attempts. He needs to be better on offense. And I think that when you combine, a few missed floaters, you combine a few missed tip-ins, really, that the Bucks should have had, a few possessions where they had like 3 chances right around the rim, couldn't get it. That kind of gets you your 13 points right there. And that's really probably one of the big reasons why the Bucks lost this game. Everything else, the turnover battle was sort of normal. I think that that's what it comes down to, is can they play better in the front court? And I mean, I don't think they can.
Nick, anything to add?
These guys covered it pretty well, but I think the one point to really harp on, what's a little concerning for Milwaukee, and Julian, alluded to this. I think Giannis looked about as good as he could reasonably be expected to look in this game. I mean, 20 and 17 in a game that a lot of people didn't even think he would play in until an hour before tip-off. He finished as a +1 in his 35 minutes. It's a little concerning that it felt like Milwaukee played reasonably well. They finally broke through with the shooting. And still, this game, I don't think ever really dipped under 7 points in the second half after Phoenix made that initial run. It felt like Milwaukee was hitting a ton of shots, but they just could not get stops. And another thing that's a little concerning is it felt like Mike Budenholzer, who's been criticized for not making adjustments, he made virtually every adjustment he possibly could, and none of it mattered. Chris Paul was hitting shots over whoever was guarding him, whoever was switching on to him. They had no answers for Devin Booker in the mid-range. Cam Payne was blowing by guys for easy layups. And like I think Julian said, what's concerning is that the Suns didn't even shoot the ball all that well from 3. They had a great night from 2-point range. They had a great night getting to the line, being super efficient. They set a finals record. At one point, I think they were 25 of 25 at the free throw line, but they have a lot of room for improvement from beyond the arc. So if you're Milwaukee, you probably have to expect your shooting to regress And there's a pretty good chance that the Suns shooting progresses in game 2.
Well, so for game 2, the Suns are favored again. They're a whopping minus 225 on the money line. Kenny, is that higher than you would expect after game 1? Or like Nick just said, do you think that you're going to see improvement actually on the Suns shooting and whatnot?
It's kind of lower than I expect, to be honest. I mean, I didn't expect to be able to back the Suns in game 2 at a reasonable price. And I think that's what we have here. I mean, I think that you could take the Suns on the money line here and really, it wouldn't break the bank too much. And I think that that's pretty surprising after the game that we saw in game 1. And, you know, again, we've touched on how well the Bucks played. But if you look at the second half of that game, and it felt like the Bucks played really well, right, in the second half. We talked about the adjustments from Mike Budenholzer, 50% from 3. They got 17 points from Chris Middleton in that second half. But you look at the score line, and they were outscored by 5 points. I mean, the Bucks shot just about as well as you could have expected, nearly 50% from the field in the second half. And it wasn't enough. Their offensive rating in this game was still 104. I mean, it's just atrocious. They defended well, but the Suns, as Julian mentioned, a lot of upward mobility here with Devin Booker just 1 of 8 from 3. You had Jay Crowder, nothing for 4. I mean, you know, who knows if he'll ever hit a 3 again, right? We're going back to the LA series, but you know, campaign as well. I mean, the walking, you know, meme, the walking nail in the coffin that he is. I mean, he played really well as well. I just think that this team can get so much better, and they also seem to play a lot better with Dario Saric off the floor. I think a full game of no Saric maybe makes the Suns a little bit heavier of favorites. I'm really surprised at this line. I'm definitely taking it.
All right. I mean, Nick, is minus 225 lower than you expected?
I think it's about right based on what we saw in game 1. I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more generosity toward the Bucks looking toward game 2. Maybe you assume Giannis is a little healthier. Obviously, you have more time with this line. You know, you don't really have the questionable status, I guess, of Giannis coming into game 2. But I think Phoenix has just proved in a lot of ways that they're the better team. You know, I think it's very possible that, you know, Milwaukee made it to the finals because they ran into a very much banged up Nets team in round 2. They ran into a Hawks team that was without Trae Young for a couple games in the next round and just really isn't all that good overall. And now they're finally running into a team that is complete, that has guys who are just almost impossible to defend one-on-one in Booker and Paul, and has a really nice young big man now in DeAndre Ayton, on top of having a really strong cast of role players. You know, the McCall Bridges, the campaigns, Cam Johnson had a couple of threes in the first half of this game. Like, Phoenix just has so many guys who can impact the game. And it just felt like with Drew Holiday once again struggling and having another just horrific offensive game in these playoffs, the Bucks ran out of options really quick. And especially with Giannis resting for about 10 more minutes than he normally would in the playoffs in a game of this magnitude when healthy, it felt like it had to be Chris Middleton. And when he struggled a little bit down the stretch, he had I think when the Bucks cut it down to 7, Middleton immediately had a turnover and then lost Devin Booker, who hit a 3 on the other end, and then had another turnover in a 3-possession sequence. That basically sunk the Bucks. But at that time, Middleton was really their only source of offense. And on the other end, it just felt like it was coming so much easier for the Suns.
All right, Jules, what do you think? Minus 225 lower or higher than you expected?
Yeah, it feels right. I think the perception was maybe that this would be like 6.5, and to kind of move a little bit from where it was. But if you remember, I mean, this was around 5.5 the entire time that we were expecting Giannis to be doubtful and sit. And it dipped to 4.5 when Giannis was ruled in and be starting. So it kind of, in some ways, did move a point, even though we were looking at 5.5 leading all the way up. You know, with the rosters as constructed, this was 4.5. So it did move a point, I guess, if you want to make that argument. And I think the 1 point move is justified. I think the Suns are in a great spot in game 2 to keep rolling. I think we all made the argument that the Suns can get better than the Bucks can get, at least in game 2 of this series. So yeah, I think that it's priced appropriately. If there's value anywhere, it's the Suns. I won't be playing it on the money line. I'll lay the 5.5. Or if you want to, you know, get a little more creative, you can do like a double result. Suns win game 2 and win the series, minus 140. That's not bad. If they're minus 3 whatever in the series and they're going to win game 2 to go up 2-0, they're probably going to finish it off. So you can find some different ways to get value. Of course, you got to wait for your payout for the series to be over, but yeah.
All right, well, the props on how long this series will go does seem to favor a 6-game series, minus 137. Nick, does that seem right to you, or do you like another number?
Man, after what we saw last night, I just Giannis needs to look a lot better. Obviously, I think based on the expectations going into last night, he looked fine, but they need more from him. Health wise, obviously, he needs to be a little bit more aggressive for me to feel better about Milwaukee's chances to extend this to 6. I think it sounds like we're all in agreement that they're in big trouble heading into Game 2 tomorrow. The series is pretty likely to be 0-2 heading back to Milwaukee for Game 3 on Sunday. And then, Milwaukee's in essentially a must-win situation for Game 3. And that one to me would probably also be a toss-up. So, on the DK Sportsbook, you can get Suns in 5 at plus 275. I don't hate that. But Suns in 6 at plus 425, pretty solid value as well. I think Suns in 5 or Suns in 6 is where I'm leaning right now.
Jules, where are you leaning?
Yeah, so I mean the prop, I guess, is over 5.5 games at minus 137. So just will this go to 6 or 7 to cash you? I would lean yes. Like as bad as that was last night, like the Bucks should still be able to get a couple of games here and make this a series. But if we're all so confident in the Suns, I think maybe a way to just bet the series is Suns minus a game and a half at minus 160-ish, minus 167. So you get the Suns in 4, 5, or 6 games. Only way you don't win it is if it goes to 7 or Milwaukee comes all the way back. I think that's my favorite series bet over just betting on the amount of games in the series.
All right, Kenny, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I would take the over 5.5 games at minus 137. I think it's a pretty good price on the Bucks to win a couple. Look, here's the thing about the Phoenix Suns. We did just gloat, right? We did just wax poetic about how good this team is. But it's easy to forget because of the last 2 games, right? How bad this team was against the Clippers. I know the Clippers are a much better team. They have a much better coach than the Milwaukee Bucks, but they fell victim to just kind of falling into that lull, right? They went up 1-0 with Devin Booker, just leading the way. He had a great game. That was the big reason they won Game 1. And then Game 2, they got lucky with those missed free throws. They managed to hold on. And then with the 2-0 lead, they just kind of sat back and they lost Game 3. They played a terrible Game 4, one of the worst games we've seen from both teams, really all postseason. And then they managed to pull it out here. Game 5, in Game 6, they really just played a great game. So the last 2 games, Game 6 and Game 1 of this NBA Finals, they've been great. But before that, leading up to that point, they were pretty bad. So I think that they could fall into the same sort of lull. I mean, it's very easy to see, another bad night for Chris Paul on the horizon or like a GOAT night for Giannis. So I think that the Bucks here will probably get a couple games in this series. They could even get one on the road. And I think that the over 5.5 is a pretty decent bet. I'm not ready to say Suns in 4 like everyone in Phoenix. I'm ready for what are they going to do when the Suns lose a game? Are they going to start doing this in the crowd? We saw a lot of these, but I don't know.
All right, well, after dropping Game 1, the Bucks are now plus 270 to win the series. Before this segment started, Kenny, I heard you say you were thinking about taking the Bucks before Game 1, and now you are out on that. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm out. Look, I did want this price. I did think about, but look, I mean, the Bucks played really well in Game 1 and still lost. And I think that, my main thinking with this series was, okay, the Bucks play good defense. They should be able to, to hold this a lethal offense at bay. They did that. But again, their offensive struggles are just still present. Like all postseason long, this team has struggled to score the basketball. Shooting this well from 3 and still not winning, I just don't think that they're going to be able to get across the finish line. I'm willing to admit that I was wrong coming into this series, and I thought the Bucks had enough shooting here to kind of outlast the Suns, who don't have great shooting, but it just hasn't been the case. And I think DeAndre Ayton should have a real good stranglehold on this series, and maybe even a Finals MVP. So I think that the Suns here win in probably 6 games.
Jules, what do you think?
Well, as tempting as it is now that Kenny is like calling the series over after Game 1 for Kenny to mush this, I can't put my money on the Bucks at this point. I think the Suns have too many advantages, like we pointed out, and the advantages are with their best players too, with Ayton's matchup, with Booker and Paul. So the fact that the spot that they want to go with the ball is to all their best players here, and then just let the perimeter shooters shoot. Jay Crowder can't do any worse than 0 for 9 or whatever he was. So things can only get better. Like, I think you just got to get creative with different ways to keep backing the Suns here for the series. The Chris Paul minus 130 Finals MVP. the Suns to win game 2 and win the series, the Suns minus a game and a half, whatever you're most comfortable with. Find ways to cut the series price down on Phoenix rather than chase a big number on Milwaukee.
All right, Nick, you agree with the guys?
Yeah, we're going to go 3 for 3 here. Like I said before, last night just kind of reiterated to me that I think the Suns are just flat out the better team. And when you factor in, Giannis not playing for a week and being a little bit rusty, that just, kind of tilts things in favor of Phoenix even more. It feels like the Bucks, they're kind of out of adjustments already. It's not like, other than Drew Holiday playing better, I guess, the rest of the series, I don't know what it feels like could go a lot more right relative to last night. It's just so devastating to have that shooting game that you've been waiting for to hit 16 threes and still lose by double digits. It would almost would have been better like if Giannis didn't play last night and the Bucks had a horrible shooting night and you lose by 30 and you're like, all right, well, we're bringing Giannis back. We can shoot better. It's like so much went right for the Bucks to still lose handily. It is really, really difficult. So no, I got to stick with Phoenix right now. I know there's not a ton of value there. Like Julian said, you got to get a little bit creative. But it's just starting to feel, even though we're only one game in, and granted, if Milwaukee comes back and wins tomorrow night, all this completely flips and we'll be talking completely differently on the show. But it's starting to feel like, destiny is being fulfilled and Chris Paul is finally going to get this ring.